Minecraft 1.20, well, left a lot to be desired. While some players such as myself were hoping for a massive end update, others were hoping for the addition of forgotten or once mentioned features seemingly left out to dry by Mojang. And this is an interesting point. Throughout the past few years, as the game has continued to update and see new additions, many once promised features have seemingly been forgotten, never receiving functionality or proper inclusion into the game at all. Let's not forget the game's performance, which took a massive hit in 1.18, never truly recovering since. You see, what Minecraft 1.20 really should have been is the tying loose ends update, as things will only continue to get worse from here on out. It's no secret that vanilla Minecraft performance is shocking. It was never great in the first place, which is why performance enhancing mods such as Optifine and Sodium gained so much popularity, but it really took a nosedive in 1.13 and then again in 1.18. How is it that on Minecraft 1.19.2, with my RTX 3080 graphics card, 32GB of RAM, and the Ryzen 9 3900X processor, the game still runs worse than Cyberpunk 2077 at almost max settings? The game regularly dips down into the 20 to 30 FPS range and normally hangs around the 45 to 55 range. And keep in mind, this is a Minecraft world with no builds, farms, or any excess that causes lag. If I hop onto my survival world with my gigantic base full of entities in vanilla 1.19, well, let's just say you may as well be viewing an album of my screenshots instead of actually playing the game. If I hop back to 1.12.2 vanilla, performance is actually great, with my FPS consistently around 130 to 150, often going as high as 200. Both tests were done with almost identical settings and 32 render distance as well, by the way. Vanilla 1.13's performance isn't exactly anything to brag about either, generally sitting around 60 to 70 FPS, but in comparison to 1.12.2, it's a massive step down. As for what happened in 1.13, well, it's a combination of factors, from the update being a bit rushed, certain AI like COD leading to memory leaks, there was a rewrite of the entire code base changing how block data was stored, and much more. Performance did improve up until about 1.18 though. Prior to 1.18, the world height was only 256 blocks and nothing would generate below Y level 0. But that later changed to a world height of 320 blocks, with caves generating an additional 64 blocks below Y level 0. All that extra content is going to be taxing on performance, there's no way around it. But that being said, it's not like performance can't be improved. Optifine and Sodium have proven time and time again that Minecraft Vanilla is far from optimized, with both offering as high as 200 to 300% performance increases. In fact, Minecraft's vanilla performance is so bad that some players on lower spec systems genuinely can't play the game without one of such mods. So why hasn't game performance been Mojang's focus? It's been 4 years since 1.13 and performance has only gotten worse since. If modders can do it, then Mojang, a company with multi-millions, backed by a billion-dollar company, surely has the resources to do so. Optifine is literally maintained by a single developer. How is a single developer outclassing one of the biggest companies in the world? It's honestly appalling that game performance hasn't taken a bigger priority yet. A bigger priority, just like the priority of me hitting 450k subs. We are so close to 450k, so be sure to sub if you haven't already. No pressure. Anyways, vanilla Minecraft server performance also has never been great, but after 1.13, it didn't just fall off a cliff, the chunks didn't load due to lag, and it fell straight into the goddamn void. That's why so many bigger servers are still running 1.8.9 or 1.12.2 natively and use plugins such as VIA version to allow clients from other versions to connect. I run a 1.19 SMP, and I'll tell you now, if it wasn't for custom server software such as Paper, the server would crash with not even 10 players online, not to mention the millions of exploits and hacks that could crash the server with a click of a button. In fact, Java server performance is so bad that the Hive, prior to shutting down their Java server, stated that it costs the same to run a Minecraft server with 3,000 players on Java as it did to run a Bedrock server with 30,000 players. Minecraft vanilla server software is so poorly optimized and once again is only really getting worse. I can tell you now that all other server owners out there were praying to whatever god they believed in that Mojang would announce server performance improvements during Minecon Live. If other players can create custom server software that outperforms Mojang's by such a margin that running a vanilla server is a death sentence, it really displays how much it has been neglected. Mojang once again have the backing and resources to improve it, so why they haven't still is beyond my knowledge. Let's move away from the technical side of the game now and look more at neglected or forgotten features perfect for the tying loose ends update theme. Archaeology, rumored to be added in 1.20, was first announced 2 years ago now and has been delayed twice and now seemingly shelved for the time being, as Mojang stated that they weren't comfortable with implementing it yet. Well hey, why not trial or beta it in a 1.20 snapshot? Many Minecraft features have been released only to receive widespread backlash, so I think if Mojang utilized snapshots to trial or beta test certain features, this backlash could be alleviated. 1.20 is a good time for this, considering they stated that they don't really have a theme yet and are still working on many new features. The only thing they would have to make sure they do is clearly communicate to players that archaeology is in beta testing and may be removed. There are a few other features of the game which, like archaeology, were announced and indefinitely delayed. Birch forests and fireflies were the source of much drama a few months back when it was announced that they would not be included in the at the time unreleased 1.19. 1.19 was criticized for not being wild enough, so adding the birch forests and fireflies would be a nice 1.19 loose end tied. The fletching table was added back in 1.14 during 2019 and to this day still does nothing. This is another loose end which needs to be tidied up, and 1.20 snapshots provide the perfect chance to play with and beta test them. The fletching table's design seems to indicate it will have something to do with combat, which, speaking of, let's not forget Minecraft's combat snapshots. It's been over 2 years since the last combat snapshot, with it seemingly being put on the back burner while Jeb and the team dealt with 1.17 being split into multiple updates. Well, now that the entire Caves and Cliffs arc has finally come to its conclusion, and with 1.20 still having an unannounced theme, why not finally add the combat snapshots to the game? Even though there has been multiple snapshots, there are still some issues, but the great thing about the combat snapshots is that they have been beta tested extensively by players. I made a video about this a few months back, but there exist small but very active combat test communities who still to this day run combat test servers. These community members know the ins and outs of the snapshots and all of its strategies, so Jeb could easily enlist their help to add some final touches and fixes to the snapshots so they could be added to the game. The community will be overjoyed, and who knows, maybe even minigame servers still running 1.8 since 2014 will finally update, but only time will tell. Like archaeology, bundles were announced in Minecraft 1.17 over 2 years ago now, but still have not been added to the game, indefinitely delayed. That was until earlier this week when they were added to a snapshot version of Minecraft as a toggleable experimental feature, so it seems like Mojang is doing some beta testing after all. Regardless, the state bundles are in aren't great and would simply be a worse version of shulker boxes, not assisting the growing issue of inventory and storage clutter at all. A lot of other YouTubers have been suggesting that 1.20 should have been the inventory update, and I agree. The original inventory system, which has basically remained unchanged since the game's inception, was designed for far fewer blocks. Now, over a decade later, you need at least 75% of your inventory space reserved for PvP-based items on the average survival server. My point is, the current inventory is outdated and has been long overdue for some improvements and optimizations. 1.20 should have focused on updating the inventory to better accommodate for the far greater increases in blocks and items which are in the game now. A simple solution could be to add a storage item slot to the inventory, similar to the offhand slot, which allows players to equip a backpack or some item that expands the amount of inventory slots you have. This would assist in alleviating inventory clutter, as well, you simply have more space. If the Rascal won the mob vote, it could have also given players a backpack, which would have added a nice and useful functionality for it, but oh well, guess you get an oversized Warp Nylium block instead. Furthermore, adding utility slots to the inventory, which for example could only hold food, projectiles like ender pearls or firework rockets, would also free up inventory slots that are almost always taken away by such items. These could be activated using specific binds, just like an MMO. Exumavoid had a great video with lots of ideas for an inventory update. Personally, I think allowing shulker boxes to pick up items off the ground and automatically store them would be very handy as well. One thing I haven't seen mentioned much are older structures. Like the inventory, many current structures in the game have outdated loot that becomes valueless to players who've been playing the world for more than 1 week. Even the best structure loot in the game, End Cities, has become quite outdated as of 1.16 now that Netherite exists. No, I don't want to spend hours pillaging End Cities, only to get an unbreaking 1 iron shovel. And I have a good fix for this. You see, a few years back, the way Minecraft structure chests worked changed. If you switch into spectator mode and fly around randomly into new chunks until you come across a structure with a chest, you won't be able to open it as the loot hasn't generated yet. Basically, the game checks the player's status before opening a chest and then generates the loot based on it. This was supposed to work with potion effects such as luck, which would improve the loot you get in chests. So for example, if I get the Seed of this world and go to the same structure chest with a luck effect and without a luck effect, the items would be different. This functionality was never properly implemented though, and as such, the loot would be the same no matter what. But what if Minecraft's structure chest loot did change dynamically, improving the later you get into the game? We can use the in-game days metric for this. Let's say you find a desert temple and open the chests only 10 days into a Minecraft world. The loot will be what it is now already in vanilla Minecraft. But then let's say you are surviving 1000 days in your hardcore Minecraft world and go to a desert temple, the loot will check your day count and change to be substantially better as the player has been in the world longer. A dynamically changing loot chest system would actually make in-game structure loot still useful later into the game and would give 100 Days YouTubers something else to clickbait. Once again, a nice update to an outdated feature which would fit perfectly into the tying loose ends theme. I talked about this last week, so I won't go into too much detail, but there are many features from Minecraft's 2018 and 2019 Biome votes which were promised to be added eventually, yet have had no word from Mojang about their inclusion for years now. Same goes for the losers of the later 3 mob votes. Why not revamp some biomes which were promised in the 2018 and 2019 biome votes? The desert would be a great fit for this update considering we already got the new camel. Revamping biomes would also tie another end of the 1.19 wild update, which didn't feel wild in the slightest. More info about that in a video here. Okay, here's a major one you guys brought up on Twitter, which the 1.20 update definitely should have focused on: Bedrock and Java parity. For the longest time, there have been significant differences between certain mechanics on Java and Bedrock. Some of them are extremely noticeable, such as the combat and offhand functioning very differently on Bedrock to Java, whereas some are more niche but still quite useful, such as Bedrock's different redstone and movable tile entities. Mojang developers have stated in the past that they do eventually want to have Java and Bedrock parity, and what better update to start it than the Tying Loose Ends update. Adding the combat snapshots to the game would allow for combat parity, and letting Java have movable tile entities would also solve some big problems technical players have been complaining about for years. Bedrock should probably adopt Java's redstone mechanics as well. There's a lot of other smaller parity-based changes, here's a video on that if you're curious. And on the topic of Bedrock, well, a 1.20 Tying Loose Ends update would arguably be even more important for them. There are an innumerable number of Bedrock glitches and issues that range from mildly annoying to making the game entirely unplayable. Bedrock players can't go more than 131,071 blocks out in a world before they start to experience issues, and if they go even further, the game becomes more and more unplayable, with players literally falling through the world. Let's not forget about the many multiplayer exploits which basically make realms and even normal servers unplayable. We got a nice taste of that during the Minecon Live beta voting server. Bedrock has some severe issues which have been present in the game for so many years now and still have yet to be patched. Bedrock needs a 1.20 Tying Loose Ends update. So what do you think of my 1.20 idea? Let me know in the comments and be sure to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching.